just unfathomable.
Tonight, Victoria's fire horror. A state in mourning as 36 people die in our worst bushfire tragedy since Ash Wednesday. Indescribable terror as residents flee the firestorm. Towns brought to ruin and livelihoods destroyed. A premier reduced to tears.
We've got a large number of people in the Alfred,
as residents return to the smouldering remains of their homes.
All I've got left is what I stand up in and my bag and my house. All right,
Mum. 10 News at 5 with Mal Walden.
Good evening and welcome to this special hour bulletin of 10 News. Tonight, Victoria is still coming to grips with the full extent of the firestorm that swept across the state, razing entire towns and leaving a staggering death toll. In news just to hand, 50 people are now confirmed dead, the toll eclipsing Ash Wednesday. But that devastating figure may rise further as authorities finally enter areas decimated by the inferno. A dozen people perished on Black Saturday in Kinglake and nearby Kinglake West, many in cars. Neighbouring St Andrews lost another 4, and on the other side of the mountain, 4 died at Walden. In the same region, 3 people were killed at Humevale. Single deaths have also been recorded in numerous centres, including Bendigo and Long Gully. The first of the victims has also been named, 67-year-old Peter Avola, killed at Strathewen. And as we go to air tonight, up to 26 fires are still raging across Victoria, with fears it may be weeks before they're fully extinguished. Fires have jumped highways and smoke is blanketing the Hume from Seymour to Albury. At least 640 homes have been destroyed in what is rapidly becoming the biggest natural disaster Victoria has ever faced. Kinglake is one of the most devastated regions with little left standing from the raging inferno. As Victoria's death toll continues to rise, there are fears more residents have fallen victim to the fires after staying to try to save their homes. Reporter Gerard Sholton has spent the day with devastated locals.
Thanks, Mel. Well, this is the scene that Kinglake residents woke up to this morning, and it's a scene that's been repeated right around the district. This is just one house among dozens and dozens that have just been totally destroyed. The township of West Kinglake, just up the road from here, well, it virtually no longer exists. The general store has been destroyed. There are just 3 homes left in that district. And of course, that's not to mention the loss of life, the terrible loss of life in this region. So far, we know of a dozen people have died, but authorities are saying that number will climb and climb steeply as they sift through the wreckages of these homes, they sift through the ashes. Everywhere you look, there is this destruction, there is shock on the faces of the residents of Kinglake. A desperate panic bid to escape the hellish fire as it consumed Kinglake proved fatal. 6 people died in the 4-car pile-up as black smoke turned day into night. Rescue crews helpless as fallen trees blocked the road. It's unclear whether the victims perished in the accident or the fire which chased them. Home after home after home has been destroyed. Too many to count.
We hunkered down in the garage and the radiant heat kit in there sucked the oxygen out. We had a look outside then we went next door. Big bit of flat ground out there, and we stayed there for 2.5 hours.
Must have been terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mark Lowry returned to the piles of rubble which were once his home. Bricks literally exploding in the searing heat.
There's just so much hard work that we put in. We've been here 5 years and put in a heap of hard work, and I just finished working on a couple of cars and there's nothing left of the cars now. Nothing left of anything.
Not even the church was spared the fire's fury. Just 3 homes remain at neighbouring Kinglake West. Jane Cameron stood bewildered beside the ruins of her house. She lost everything, even her shoes.
Well, I don't know. I've just got no memory of things. I've lost my false teeth. I've helped a couple of people that have been going down, just by giving them a cuddle. And that's all you can do.
Authorities know at least a dozen people are dead, and they're certain they'll find at least a dozen more when they begin sifting through the ashes of these ruined homes. In nearby St Andrews, at least 4 residents succumbed to the flames, including a family of 3. A 13-year-old girl somehow survived. The lucky ones escaped with their lives.
We heard some poor girl down there screaming for help and we couldn't do anything because we had to save ourselves. It was just that case, you just got to go.
With nothing left, there was no reason to stay. A convoy of residents in cars and on buses escaped the destruction to the comfort of family and friends. They know there's no place like home, they just don't know where that place will be. Gerard Sholton, 10 News.
Another centre enveloped by the bushfire crisis is Marysville, where the fire front virtually wiped out the entire town. All but 3 homes have been destroyed and lives shattered.
A town under siege as fire attacked from all fronts, houses burning as the blaze took hold. This amateur vision shows the football ground where locals sought refuge, watching as flames moved in.
It was horrendous. It was like a firestorm, and it came to us from 3 sides.
Today their worst fears were realised, a town gutted.
I wouldn't have left without him, and I thought he'd gone up there. So I thought, well, this is how we end our life together.
They've lost everything, but still they have each other.
I reckon if we hadn't been another 5 minutes, we wouldn't have made it. Because it was just so sudden. It was a fireball that came down off the mountain.
The streets of Marysville have been wiped out, cars burnt, the police station destroyed. These gas cylinders ticking time bombs.
It's just incredible to see a town like this. And I can't work out, how I can live here anymore myself.
The school burnt beyond belief, some parts still burning, chairs showing the evidence of how intense the heat was. The supermarket, pub and even the Cumberland guest house also fell victim. The difference between life and death, less than a metre. It could be days before the death toll is realised, with Marysville not yet included. It's believed those among the dead are families of firefighters who were doing what they could to protect the town.
In town we couldn't do anything about it, we couldn't see. There was trees, limbs falling down, so we just had to bolt and did the best we could, but it was too fierce to hold it.
Ironically, the information guide to Marysville was one of few things left standing, but a map isn't needed to see what's left of the town. Cameron Smith, 10 News.
We're joined now by Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, live from the city. Firstly, Mr Rudd, thanks for sparing your time. We've just been witnessing some terrible scenes here. You visited some of the victims today. It must have been a very emotional day for you too.
I think if you spend any time with people who experience such shock, such trauma, such tragedy, it's palpable. But my message to the people of Victoria is the nation grieves with Victoria tonight, but the nation rallies with Victoria as well, and that's what we're about to do.
Now, when you're confronting such pain as you did today, what personal comfort do you offer, and how do you overcome your own emotions?
I think people who have been through this are in a state worse than any of us can ever imagine. I think the first response of any human being, and I saw it writ large in the compassion of the Red Cross workers and others today, is simple empathy. There but for the grace of God go I. Then it's practical, and then it's how you can begin to help. And look, this is going to take a long time to recover from, but if we all pull together, and Australians are good at that, then we'll see these terribly afflicted communities through, and the families.
At what stage did you decide to offer military and federal disaster recovery payments? And given the current economic crisis, will that be enough?
I spoke late last night in the very early hours of the morning with Premier John Brumby, and it's quite plain that the military have assets that can help, and that was the request from the Premier. I immediately, of course, responded, and we've done that in terms of heavy bulldozers, in terms of temporary accommodation requests and bedding, and we'll stand ready to do whatever is necessary when our senior military personnel tour each of these centres tomorrow. But Centrelink payments, that is helping people out with, like some of the people I've met today literally have escaped, as you know, with just the shirts on their backs. They've got no money, they've got no clothes for tomorrow, nothing clean, they haven't got any toothpaste. And so what we're trying to do is to get out the information that as of tomorrow, if you're affected by this, then there'll be immediate emergency Centrelink payments. And I think that that telephone number has been circulated on all the TVs.
Yeah, we'll also repeat it. I just wondered, when you went out there, was it more devastating than you first thought?
Oh, look, the fire authorities frankly kept us, back from the areas where the fire had hit, and they're running the show, and that's what they should do. We're simply dealing with the fireys themselves, the country firefighters, and I'm sure many people have said this today, but as Prime Minister of Australia I should say it again. Each one of them is a hero. Each one of them is a hero. Each one of our emergency services workers is a hero. But dealing with the lives of those who are affected, I think all Australians watching tonight reach out with a supporting hand. Together with the Premier of Victoria, we've launched an immediate community recovery fund with $10 million in it, $5 million from each government. But for the community at large, we've also launched a Victorian Bushfires appeal fund. And if I could simply announce on your news tonight the number which people should call, 1-800-811-700. 1-800-811-700, and both governments will kick that off with $2 million apiece. And you can donate through your local bank as well.
And on that note, I thank you for your time, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. And authorities are urging people to only call 000 if they have an emergency. Those concerned about family or friends in the fire areas should telephone the bushfire hotline on 1-800-727-077. And we'll have more on Victoria's bushfire crisis in our special hour-long bulletin after this break. And our bushfire disaster is resonating around the nation and the world. The Prime Minister dropping his commitments to join John Brumby touring the devastation. State political reporter Gareth Boreham joins us live now from Whittlesea. Gareth?
Yes, Mel, I'm here coming to you from the epicentre, I guess, of the bushfire relief effort here at the Whittlesea Community Centre, where hundreds of traumatised families have sought refuge from the fires, as the Prime Minister noted, literally with just the clothes on their backs and the few possessions that they've managed to grab before their homes have gone up in flames. And they've had a succession of visits today from political leaders, Kevin Rudd, State Opposition Leader Ted Baillieu, and the Premier, who was here this afternoon before he returned to Melbourne for an emergency cabinet meeting. It was a day of high emotion as the nation's leaders listened firsthand to tales of devastation.
You know something? Here.
The Premier left speechless by the shocking loss of life and injury toll.
Anybody who can help should offer to do that. We've got a large number of people in the Alfred,
John Brumby and the Prime Minister touring hard-hit towns and emergency relief centres.
Everything else is gone. The house, everything. But the family's down here, so we're safe.
Stories abounding of close escapes and heart-wrenching losses.
Oh, mate, it's amazing. Something I wouldn't want to go through again. I said goodbye. I really did. Said goodbye. Had my dad there. I've never been so scared in my life.
The Prime Minister pledging all the assistance the Commonwealth can provide.
All the resources as required by the Victorian authorities from the Australian Defence Force will be provided.
Police Chief Christine Nixon is asking for patience from those wanting to return to their homes, to allow disaster victim identification experts to do their job.
At this stage, please just stay out of those areas until we can actually get in, make sure it's safe and deal with some of the consequences and certainly some of these very sad deaths that we are seeing.
In Whittlesea, Gareth Boreham, 10 News.
Victoria's cataclysmic bushfires are taking a huge emotional toll on all those involved. We've seen the impact they've had on our own Premier, and we're joined now by John Brumby live from the city. Mr. Brumby, thanks for joining us, and I hope you're not too embarrassed by your showing of emotion today.
I haven't seen the shots of that, Mel, but today was just a terrible day in terms of all of the stories, the loss of life, the loss of property. So many stories I heard of Whittlesea too, where people so narrowly escaped and others tragically didn't. Above all of that, Mel, I guess, was the extraordinary contribution of our volunteer and career firefighters and Red Cross and others, and many of these people were, we are so grateful to them for putting their lives on the line to save so many.
Doing a wonderful job. Have you been told exactly what to expect in terms of how high the death toll may go?
Well, the death toll at the moment, Mel, is 49, and the number will go higher. So
I think actually it's 50. It's already risen by 1.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of people still missing, and it takes some time for that information to come through, and tragically too, if there are people that have been trapped in a car or a house, sometimes it takes some time for identification, and that's a job, of course, which police and coroner's court undertake.
This morning you've not officially declared a state of emergency. Is that still on the cards?
Well, what we do is trigger the natural disaster arrangement. So once we do that, they're the immediate cash grants of $1,000 and grants for someone who's lost their home of up to $22,000. So they're triggered immediately. So all of the things, Mal, that we need to do, we've done. So all of that assistance is available. That's flowing to people right now. As you've just heard from the PM, we jointly announced today a recovery and rebuilding fund. There's $10 million in that. That's to do above and beyond what we would normally do in government. We've also launched the Bushfire Appeal Fund, and I'll give you the number of that in a moment as well. So all of these steps in place that are required to be put in place have been done. They're all done. So there's no need to, if you like, declare a state of emergency. All that does is give the Premier special powers. We don't need those at the moment. The system is working as well as it can in all of the circumstances.
Right. Now, speaking of systems, despite the warnings, and there were many, yet still so many were caught unaware. What happened? Did the system break down? Do we need to look at a new bushfire plan?
Look, I think I think the fire authorities would say, I would say that on Friday, all of the warnings, we couldn't have been stronger about the warnings. It was going to be a terrible day. I remember I said on Friday, if you don't need to go out on Saturday, don't go out, stay home, stay safe and stay cool. The fires, just talking to some of the families there at Whittlesea, some of those who survived through King Lake and other areas, these fires just came over the hill literally. Like a fireball over the hill. I spoke to one couple today who lost their home. They said they'd done everything right. They got the warning. They had 30 metres around them. They had the fire plan in place, but the fireball literally just landed on their house. This was running 4 stories high and 15 kilometres an hour, Mel. So, look, all of these things will be examined in due course when obviously there will be a proper review of everything which has occurred. In the meantime, the most important thing is for the people who've lost family, who've lost lives, to know that the support, the love, the support, the strength and the prayers of the people of Victoria are with everybody who's suffered in this tragedy.
And I thank you for your time, Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Mel.
Victorian Premier John Brumby. We'll have more in this special 1-hour edition of 10 News on the bushfire crisis when we return. Welcome back, and as you've heard, the bushfire threat is far from over tonight as blazes continue to rage out of control. Residents in Beechworth are the latest in the fire path, with authorities urging locals to remain on high alert.
It's a different corner of the state, but the devastation is the same. Properties gutted by a fire out of control.
Because the flames were just incredible.
Oh, there's a huge fireball come tearing down through here. We just bloody ran for it.
The intensity of the flames evident as a shed on a rural property was engulfed within moments. Locals doing all they can to protect their homes and everything inside.
Too busy to be frightened, just trying to pack up and get everything out.
Others were left to comfort those less fortunate as the realisation of what's happened sets in. Smoke so thick it wreaked havoc for those leaving their properties. Tragically, at least one couple are missing, feared dead.
A badly burnt body has been located at the scene, and at this stage I can't take that any further as to who it is or that.
Livestock were also caught in the flames, and as the blaze continues to burn, authorities have told residents to remain on high alert throughout the night. Andrew Lay, 10 News.
Once again, we're joined live by state political reporter Gareth Boran from Whittlesea. Gareth, just bring us up to date if you would. The outlook now, what is it for those who've escaped the fires with little more than their lives?
Well, Mel, authorities have promised to keep these emergency accommodation centres open for as long as these people need them. Now, of course, after that, the state and federal governments are offering millions of dollars in grants to go some way to helping these people rebuild their lives and rebuild from the ashes.
Well, obviously, you've seen firsthand the enormous impact on all those dealing with this crisis.
Yes, it's certainly been an emotional experience, and so no one's been untouched by the extent of this tragedy, and I think we all saw that the Premier in particular has been stunned by its sheer magnitude, and I think that was reflected in the address that he's just recorded to all Victorians.
Tonight, our state is in mourning. Now, as much as any time in our history, our resolve as Victorians is being severely tested. We know, tragically, that many lives have been lost. At least 49 people have perished, and we have grave concerns for many more. For those Victorians who have lost so much, we all grieve with you. So many families, families just like yours and mine, now face the task of having to rebuild their lives. We will put communities back together, and Victoria will recover. Thank you.
The Victorian Premier, and our thanks to Gareth Borum, reporting live there from Whittlesea. 2 lives have been lost and up to 50 homes destroyed by fire at Bendigo. The fatal blaze has been contained. However, a second fire has claimed more than 10,000 hectares and is still out of control.
Within 5 minutes, the Maiden Gully fire on Bendigo's west grew from a spark in a paddock to a roaring menace. Fierce winds fed the flames as they spread from home to home, claiming the life of a wheelchair-bound resident. The odds were severely stacked against those who chose to defend their homes. It was never a fair fight.
All I've got left is what I stand up in my bag. And my house. My house, 25 years, it's gone. I've worked so hard to get that house.
Those who fled eventually returned to ruin. The official figures are at least 20 homes have been destroyed. The final tally is expected to climb above 50.
We couldn't get through to let the dogs in the house. We don't know what happened to the dogs. And we couldn't get back through to get them.
Some residents are still waiting to get back to their homes as the blackout work continues.
The only thing that's stopping people from actually getting back in there is for us to make sure that the scene's safe. Now, when people go back in, you've got to understand that there's still dangers on the fire ground.
Bendigo had 2 major firefights to contend with at once. Another blaze at Reedsdale has scorched extensive farmland and is still burning out of control. Closer to Melbourne, 2 fires have combined, stretching more than 80 kilometres from Kilmore to Yarra Glen. Cameron Bowe, 10 News.
And we'll have more on Victoria's bushfire crisis after this break. In your Eye on News tonight, Victoria's fire horror. A state in mourning as 50 people are confirmed dead after Black Saturday. Desperate efforts to flee proving fatal. Entire towns left in ruins by the firestorm in what is rapidly becoming the biggest natural disaster Victoria has ever faced. Up to 26 fires are still raging, with fears it may be weeks before they're fully extinguished. This biggest fire threat ever, and Mother Nature delivered. After the state's hottest day on record, a cool change brought with it deadly winds that turned fire fronts around in just seconds. Many residents fled. Others who braved the ferocious flames paid for it with their lives.
It struck with a speed and ferocity that took everyone by surprise and defied even the worst predictions. A blaze so aggressive it left nothing but destruction in its wake. Among the towns worst affected, Kinglake and Kinglake West, 50 kilometres northeast of Melbourne. 6 people died in one car trying to outrun a fire that was simply moving too quickly. But today in a dozen towns there are stories of death, devastation and survival.
We heard some poor girl down there screaming for help and we couldn't do anything because we had to save ourselves.
The worst fires in Victoria since Ash Wednesday in 1983 were driven by scorching temperatures and powerful winds, a recipe that destroyed hundreds of homes and hundreds of thousands of hectares of grazing land, pine plantations and bush.
It just came through from the north. It was just a huge, huge fireball.
And in town after town today, people returned to find their worst fears realised.
I just can't believe it. Start again, I suppose. Gone. Not a thing left. You must have got hot.
Yeah, the water in the gutters just dried out before we'd even could do anything. So
we couldn't get through to let the dogs out of the house. We don't know what happened to the dogs. And we couldn't get back through to get them.
Thousands of weary firefighters are struggling to contain more than 30 blazes despite cooler conditions, but up to 400 are still burning. Thankfully, most are considered safe. Their efforts, though, have been hampered by arsonists cruelly relighting fires behind them. One group of firefighters was caught by the speed of a front near Whittlesea. It roared straight over them.
Yeah, it was scary.
Did you see it coming?
We saw it coming and then we had to take cover and lucky the emergency drill happens. And we all made it out, so that's the most important thing.
Something I never want to feel again.
Horrendous.
Horrendous. I've been in it, not quite 10 years, and I've never ever experienced something like that.
The Victorian Premier witnessed the devastation for himself.
We've lost the four houses in here and the guys have done a remarkable job saving the rest.
Yeah, no. But it was an experience he will not quickly forget.
Large number of people in the Alfred, excuse me. There's quite a few people with burns as well.
Those people, more than 20, now in hospital in Melbourne.
Well, most of these people have burns, and they range from minor, just the soles of their feet running away through embers, to people who have got major life-threatening burns, and unfortunately there are some people who will not survive.
After a briefing, the Prime Minister has promised money and the help of the Army.
This is just indescribably awful. This is just indescribably awful.
The threat is far from over, but there is a greater fear tonight of just how many bodies are yet to be found amid the smouldering ruins. Eddie Meyer, 10 News.
The fires have badly damaged train lines, cutting several services. Tracks on the Warrnambool to Seymour and Shepparton lines have been badly burnt. About 3,000 sleepers were destroyed over 4 kilometres between Colac and Camperdown. Trains on affected services will be replaced by buses until at least Tuesday. Now, joining us live from the Fire Emergency Centre is weatherman Mike Larkin. Mike, we saw a little bit of rain today. Has that been of any help?
Well, Mal, good evening. Quite simply, no, the CFA says not nearly enough. While there have been some isolated showers and thunderstorms right across Victoria, in fact, hundreds of lightning strikes, well, there just hasn't been enough rain. Overnight, the highest rainfall reading was around 9 millimetres in Gippsland. Today, 4 millimetres just outside Melbourne, but most readings were only 1 or 2 millimetres, and they went just like that, sadly enough. And there have been some spot fires in the likes of the Grampians, courtesy of those thunderstorms. Let's just go back 24 hours and have a look at some of the temperatures in Melbourne and actually what occurred after yesterday's record hot day. So we began at 46.4 degrees in Melbourne. The change moved up from the southwest from 5 o'clock. The temperature at 5:15, 39 degrees. By 6 it was 29 degrees, and by midnight a cooler 22, and at 20 degrees this morning at 6 o'clock. So let's have a look at today's weather. 18 degrees was the minimum, and that occurred around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Our maximum of 23 occurring 3 hours later. In Melbourne itself, we recorded just 1.4 millimetres of rain, 20 degrees outside, still a few isolated showers about, but sadly nothing to write home about. And the weather for tomorrow, 15 to 21 degrees, smoke haze, and just some isolated showers. More weather in details with the weather charts in about 10 minutes. Mal?
Thank you, Mike. Weatherman Mike Larkin reporting live there, and we'll be back with more in a special 1-hour bulletin after this break. Back. We have a tragic update. The death toll in Victoria's firestorm is now 65. With almost 80 people in hospital with severe burns from the fires, at least 3 are not expected to survive. Doctors at the Alfred Hospital have likened the emergency department to a disaster zone.
It took several hours for emergency services to access patients in the fire zone, but once they did, hospital beds quickly filled up across the state.
There are burns victims everywhere. I mean, the Austin Hospital has burns, the Northern has burns, everybody nearer the far front will have burns, but probably they will have more minor burns.
The Alfred Hospital's specialised burns unit taking the most serious cases.
It's really like a disaster. We've had a number of patients coming through. We're up to about 20 in the Alfred, and 9 of them are going to be in the intensive care unit.
At least 3 of those patients are not expected to survive. Some are members of the same family, and others have lost loved ones in the carnage.
Sad stories of flames going over cars and maybe one person surviving and being brought in and the others not surviving. And I suspect today they will find lots of cars with people who haven't survived.
One of the severely injured is a firefighter.
His collar rode up and he got radiant heat burn. We hope he will be fine, but he will stay with us because it's around his neck, around his airways.
Victoria's hospitals have never been so stretched.
78
8 burns-related admissions across the state, many hundreds of other patients who are presented for care but have not needed a bed.
And with some areas still cut off, the community is being warned to brace for more. A plea also for blood donors. The burns victims will need it for many months to come. Kelly Morgan, 10 News.
Welcome back to our special extended coverage of Victoria's bushfire horror. And the state is now in mourning after the confirmed deaths of 65 people in Black Saturday, their desperate efforts to flee proving fatal. And authorities fear that terrible toll will rise even further. Entire towns have been left in ruins by the firestorm in what has rapidly become the biggest natural disaster Victoria has ever faced. As many as 26 fires are still raging, and firefighters fear it may be weeks before they're fully extinguished. The federal and the state governments have established a $10 million crisis assistance fund for the thousands of fire victims. And now let's check the weather. It's back now to Mike Larkin in the Fire Emergency Centre.
Yeah, thanks, Mal. Good evening. Hundreds of lightning strikes have occurred across the state overnight and today, and there's in fact, as we speak, a line of thunderstorms stretching from Kilmore down to Latrobe Valley. Not much in it, but just a couple of millimetres of rain. In Melbourne, 18 degrees was the minimum. That occurred about lunchtime. 23 the maximum, and that was around 4 o'clock. We've only had 1.4 millimetres of rain in the city, but up to 4 in some of the outlying eastern suburbs. Outside right now, 20 degrees. The humidity is 60%, and that wind, well, it's been turning around. It's currently an east-southeasterly, blowing at 20 kilometres per hour. Around town on this Sunday evening, and most temperatures are in the high teens, low 20s across our state. And while temperatures have dropped dramatically in most districts, the northeast still experienced scorching temperatures, 43 at Corryong, 40 at Albury, 38 at Beechworth. In contrast, 16 today's top at Mount Dandenong and Mount William. And there have been showers and thunderstorms, as I mentioned, overnight up to 9 millimetres recorded at Glen Maggie Creek near Traralgon. Today up to 4 millimetres at Cerberus. Around Australia, Sydney City 28 degrees, but 43 degrees in the Sydney's western suburbs like Penrith. Adelaide, their heat wave is over, 25 their max today. Hobart 23, hot in Canberra, 40 for a top. The satellite picture we're not showing you, but I just want to quickly tell you that northern Queensland remains underwater. 200 millimetres of rain is expected each day for their next 4 days. The 24-hour rainfall chart sadly does us no favours. Interstate tomorrow over to Perth, a windy day, a top of 34 degrees. Adelaide 24, Hobart showers in 18, Sydney showers 24 degrees, Brisbane 10 degrees warmer. Across our state, isolated showers and still the chance of some thunderstorms contracting to the north and east tonight. Areas, obviously, of bushfire smoke. Tomorrow, isolated light showers on and south of the ranges. Isolated thunderstorms in the north in the morning. And temperature-wise, well, cool to mild with moderate to fresh winds. And there is a strong wind warning east of Cape Patterson. And a reminder, a total fire ban for the entire state remains in force until midnight tonight. Around the bay, Frankston tomorrow 14 to 19 degrees. Geelong 11 to 20. Tullamarine 12 to 20. Yarra Glen just 8 and a top of 22 degrees. And now to forecast for Melbourne, partly cloudy tonight. Still the chance of some thunderous showers tomorrow, remaining partly cloudy. Smoke haze, isolated showers in the eastern suburbs. For you back to work Monday, 15 to 21 degrees. Southerly winds of 20 to 35 k's. Out on the bays, and the winds are from the south. At the moment, 10 to 20 knots and 25 tomorrow afternoon, seas half to a metre. So tomorrow we're looking at 21. Tuesday and Wednesday, isolated showers and 20. Thursday 23 degrees, and then 26, 27. That's the weather. Have a nice night tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. Mal.
Thank you, Mike. That's our news for now. Our next bulletin will be at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with Ron Wilson. Helen Kapelos will be back from her break tomorrow night at 5. Hope you'll join us then. Take care. Good night.